of this second edition of DevOps Days Kyiv. His name is Toshaan. He comes all the way from Belgium, and he's going to be talking about the history of DevOps from an ops perspective. Big round of applause, please, for Toshaan.
So I'll be talking about comparing DevOps with pasta, well, the making of pasta. And yes, like Dan said, it's more from an operational point of view. So people who saw my Ignite yesterday, I typically do more infrastructure stuff. So it's from that perspective. Everybody's fine with English, or do you prefer Dutch, French, German? Ukrainian is not one of my... I can try in Hindi, but not in Ukrainian. No, okay, so we'll continue in English. So yes, like Dan said, I'm from Belgium. I live in Antwerp, about 15 kilometers from Chris. So I know Chris a long while. Like you see at the end, we organize a few conferences. He forgot to mention the most important one, YAML Camp. I mean, in the meanwhile, we are all YAML engineers, so we have a specific camp for that. So another important thing is as a Linux, that will become later on very important in the talk, but people who disable it, please come up to me. I'll explain you how to use it, and please stop disabling it. And especially if you use something called Kubernetes. I mean, yeah, I mostly do Ansible talks. I do very little of Puppet and everything else. And like I said, I come more from an operational point of view. So I do mostly hardware and software that runs on hardware. So a short overview, introduction, a little bit about the origins, past, the not so past, and basically a timeline and a small conclusion. So the introduction. So who knows what pasta is? Well, okay. So pasta is basically made of this thing called durum wheat, which is basically a wheat that you need to plant as a farmer, and you process that. Some of the newer pastas use fancier things like rice, lentils, or potatoes. So people who like gnocchi, I think it was in one of the restaurants yesterday, that's based on potatoes, but most of the traditional pasta is based on durum wheat. So there are different types of pasta. You have the pasta with sauce, which is the typical one we know. You have the pasta which is more in the soup type of flavoring. So if you like minestrone soup, you typically will get some kind of pasta there. It's mostly what was left over yesterday, but that's also fine. And then you have pasta which is baked in the oven. And so these are the different types of pasta. I tried to use that as an analogy for IT ingredients. So you have software development, typically dev people. You have infrastructure operators, typically ops people. And then you need to solve some kind of business purpose. So like John said yesterday, I mean, we don't do this just for fun. We serve a certain customer base, mostly the business. And that's why we do all of these things. So there are different types of IT. Specifically, it's more hardware. Typically, most people today don't play around with hardware. I doubt that there are people still printing their own motherboards and building their own CPUs. So we are more in the software landscape. People still build their own software. People have databases because we have some data that needs to be stored and used. We have networks, which typically is what the internet is about. There's more than Twitter on the internet, by the way. And then you have a whole bunch of procedures because there's a whole bunch of things that need to be taken care of. So this talk will go back in time. I know Dan likes time. Mine will not be that descriptive as his about the time. But the reason why time is important is because history repeats itself. Like Chris said, we have seen a lot of things happen in the past. DevOps is a movement that actually is trying to change our mindset. And to do that, we need to understand what happened in the past so that we can actually understand and have a better view. Yeah, avoid sprawls. So Chris mentioned in the morning image sprawls. For people using containers, you will see more nicer slides coming up. Yeah, this view is opinionated, as in this is what I think about it. If you don't agree with me, let me know. We can have discussions on these things. If you want to interrupt during the talk, I'm fine with that also.
Great.
So, the origins. In the olden days, if you wanted to make something like pasta, you had to actually plant your own wheat. You had to harvest it. You had to mill it. You had to make your own pasta. Then you had to choose what type of pasta you wanted to actually make of that, so the sauce of it. And then you could only eat your food. So typically, this is not something you could do and decide that, oh, I want to have some pasta, let me make something today. You had to have an overview. You had to have a long time to build your pasta, well, to make your pasta. So in the IT world, we typically see this as the waterfall model, which takes a long time. And if any of these processes actually fail, you will end up having no pasta. So that's not good. So for people who are very, very old, they actually made everything from scratch. You designed your own motherboards, you built your own processors, you put everything together yourself. You had to install the software, which you mostly had to compile yourself then. You had to integrate everything, and then you could solve one specific problem. So for people who know, there were actually rooms this big just to calculate small little equations. But we learned from that, and we evolved from there further. Nope. And so at some point we were farmers and we planted everything. Today most of the farmers are big brands. So you typically don't build your own motherboards. You buy a specific machine which has a motherboard from another sub-manufacturer. But without the farmers, we wouldn't be able to do what we do today. After that, there was a little bit more evolution in the sense that you could buy your wheat from a farmer. So that's you buy the motherboards, you actually assemble your computers, you mill your wheat in this case, you make your pasta, and you could eat it. So you could reduce the time of the planting and the seeding and actually waiting till the wheat became fully grown, and the time frame became a little bit smaller. In the infrastructure world, that is typically the assemble your servers. So actually Google, one of the companies you might know, started in this. They actually bought commodity hardware and they used to assemble that. So if you ever have the chance to go to Mountain View, you can still see one of the old racks where you actually see them using commodity hardware to build their own software. So some companies have actually seen this stage. This is typically, if you're more in the medium-sized companies, the server closets. So you will have a small company which will tell you that, yes, I have a room there and there are some machines there which do a whole bunch of stuff. And then you get somebody to maintain that. That's the time when the system administrators came more into place. So yeah, this was the craftsman, because you had to know what everything is. And yeah, the happy birthday was because of Sasha, but she already got her. She already got her birthday cake. So yeah, but you had to be a craftsman. I mean, you had to understand the systems, you needed to know the electronics. So when I was at university, we still had transistors, resistor technology being explained so that we could actually understand how a CPU works and how we could write software for that. Now, not so far away, we actually evolved. You can actually go now to a store. I saw Auchan on the way. I don't know how to pronounce that in Ukrainian. But you can actually go to the store and buy pasta. You could actually make that. So if you have a craving tonight to have pasta, that's not a problem. You go to a store, you buy it, and you can actually use it. And consume it the same evening. Similarly, today you can buy an HP, Dell, IBM, or any other branded server. You can actually put them in your rack and get started and have a whole software stack on it. And this is when we see the more data center-centric evolution come to place. This is where the system administrators came into effect, and you would prefer to have the upper picture. If you're stuck with the lower picture, yes, you can think about other solutions. Now, even a better evolution is if you could go to a restaurant and actually buy pasta. So typically now everywhere in the world you will find more than enough Italian restaurants, and you can actually go and buy pasta and eat it directly. Similarly, you can actually buy a rack or go to the cloud and then consume your machines, and the complete infrastructure would be available instantly, on demand, and whenever you wanted it. And then the problems start with RAIN, because you need to understand how these things work. And we became YAML engineers, because Anton likes Terraform, and now he can provision everything with Terraform. However, that wasn't good enough. I mean, we want to be more evolved than this. So currently, we want to have instant pasta. So if you go to the store, you can actually get these little cans, and the only thing you need to do is put water, and you can eat it directly. It takes about 5 minutes, I think. At least that's what the paper says. Sorry? Yeah. So, and then you can actually eat it. Similarly, you now have containers that devs can actually build, and you can run them. And they run in something called Kubernetes. And once you know YAML, you have all the solutions possible. And then a friend of ours tweets this. And Chris answers to him, full root access, SE Linux disabled, no firewalls present. So yes, so he was most probably going to one of the setups, and he saw this. And this is not a joke. I mean, there are people who are actually doing this in production. They are actually running Kubernetes with full access privilege, root, no firewalls, and they think all problems will be solved because we have these nice technologies, we can do very quickly stuff, but we haven't learned that from actually making our infrastructure, we learned a lot of lessons. We learned how to become highly available in the sense that today you do not make grain anymore, wheat anymore yourself, because you go and buy that, and you have multiple farmers actually doing that. So you can actually, if one farmer loses some wheat, you could still make pasta at the end. So what is the next step? The next step is instant pasta, as in instant gratification. So not even adding water, because that's too much work. We need to boil the water. So we want to actually have something that we can consume directly. And we will now download containers from the internet, because even building the containers is actually too complicated. And we'll just run them anywhere. And Chris likes to call these YOLO engineers. Yeah, well, I'm not happy with that word. I think this is much, much better. And Yoda can't be wrong. I mean, he knows everything. So, but anyway, these type of things have evolved. We are not learning from what we knew in the past. And the next thing is, of course, we don't want pasta. We just want a little bit tablet. You eat it, and you will taste the pasta in your mouth. I mean, why even bother buying and doing stuff? We want everything instantly. So we go serverless. We run all functions everywhere, and we become functionless engineers. And then we have this nice thing called dev null in a black hole, and we can do everything. everything runs super fast, everything works all the time. We don't have to care about security because it all disappears anyway. So, what should we do actually? We should think about the past. I encourage everybody to read what happened, how we evolved to this stage. So things like image sprawl are quite prominent again. So for people who used VMs, they know what that means. For people who use containers, that might not be actually very understandable directly. Because they haven't seen the pains that we had with virtual machines or even with physical machines. But to be able to understand the future, to be able to predict what will happen or what problems we could have, we must understand the past. I gave you a very quick overview. And yeah, like I said, I help organize on other DevOps days. Chris already mentioned it. The website is there, the CFP is open, the early bird is open, tickets are available. Sorry? What isn't open? Of course it has opened. You go to this link.
So the question from the audience is, can you actually buy tickets for this event?
Let's go and see.
Ooh, live demo time. Everybody buckle up.
Here, you can buy a ticket, early bird.
I think we have to do an integration test here. Does anybody have a credit card?
Yeah, just give me your credit card. Don't worry, we'll arrange it.
I mean, it looks like it could possibly function. So, there you go.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, no, I actually bought a ticket the other day, so I think we're good. Does anybody have any questions? Any questions, comments? Yes, sir. Here it comes.
Hi, I'm Voa. Thank you very much for talk. I did not get the answer. Is it bad or not?
What is bad or not?
To have a tablet instead of pasta.
If you're happy with the tablet and you think it will solve your problem, why not? But I don't think that will solve all your problems, just having a tablet. Pasta, definitely.
Pasta clearly superior to DevOps, yes. Any other questions, comments? Hilarity ensues? No? All right. Thank you very much, Tashiwashi.